I first heard about Track Rock Gap in 2012. There was a huge media buzz at the time because a local historian and architect had drawn some similarities between the village ruins at Track Rock and other villages in the Mayan culture of South America. A lot of media outlets pounced on this fascinating story, and instantly Track Rock Gap was getting international attention. Obviously, the village ruins were interesting to me, but I also kept reading about a volcanic vent, or fumarole, being a part of the complex too. It shows up on a couple of maps of the Track Rock Gap village, but I haven't been able to find a single picture or any video of this mystical fumarole anywhere. I've also read a lot of comments online from people who don't believe it exists. Finding this fumarole and seeing it in person is my kind of adventure. So I'm headed to Brasstown Bald Mountain in North Georgia.
Turn right onto Booger Hollow Road, then turn right onto Town Creek School Road. In 1.5 miles, turn right onto Track Rock Gap Road.
Apparently, the petroglyphs on the left side of the road at Track Rock Gap have been studied and carbon dated and are not associated with the old village ruins across the street and up the mountain. They seem to be the work of indigenous people that lived here several hundred years later. And there are even some scratches from European settlers many years later than that. Track Rock Gap Road runs north and south here. The maps I've seen show the fumarole directly east up the mountain. I have no idea how far. My plan is to walk east and explore and see what I can find. I go in at the entrance to Arcaqua Trail, which meanders 5.5 miles up to the top of Brasstown Bald. Here's a look at the route I took on my first day here. I followed the Arcaqua Trail until it makes a sharp left turn around the mountain, and I continued straight. Through the woods and up the mountain, across into the village ruins, and then back down. I ran into an interesting rock with grooves cut into it not far up the mountain. I've read that a compass will twitch and wander up near the Acropolis, or main area of the old village, so I checked mine often to see if this happens. So far it's very solid, so I continue east. Further up the mountain, I run into some large rocks that seem to be placed in circles. Hard to really make anything of it, though. It's absolutely silent out here, which may be a good thing. And so far, all I see is forest in every direction. More rocks, which actually look very natural. Further up, I run into a flat mound or plaza area that looks man-made. It doesn't jive with the natural slope of the mountainside. Notice how flat it is on top. It's also facing the sun. A little higher up the ridge is another flat mound. It's truly hard to imagine what this looked like 1,000 or 1,200 years ago. Trees reclaimed these mountains so fast, and imagine over 1,000 years of leaves falling every fall. It's odd to see daffodils growing this far up in the forest, very close to a pile of rocks, and groups of ferns. This may be significant to the history of this place. Daffodils are not native to America. Their origins go back to Spain. De Soto and his crews were known to have searched for a large Indian village in this area in the late 1500s. Do these daffodils then put a time stamp on early trading with the Spanish? This puts me about right here on my hike. I feel like I should have found a cliff or area of very large boulders, but there just wasn't. More rock mounds with huge oaks growing up out of the center of them. Eventually, while hiking back west down the mountain, I end up at a creek, and I ran into what seems to be the old trading trail, which is different than the Arcaqua Trail. Several of the articles and comments I read online mentioned the United States Forestry Service cutting down trees to try and hide this trail and discourage curious people from visiting the village site back in 2012. This was right at the peak of the media activity and energy around the possibility this village was built by Mayan people. I can understand the uproar, and I can also understand that the Forestry Service felt a need to slow the traffic down of curious people to these ruins. There are a lot of disrespectful and selfish treasure hunters out there. I can't say the first trip was a disappointment. It was an incredibly enjoyable and very physically demanding day. But I didn't find anything that resembled a fumarole, so I planned a second trip. As tiring as the first hike was, I felt that I needed to continue hiking east, up the mountain, until I found some form of rock cliffs or large boulders. This is the route of my second trip. I followed the Arcaqua Trail basically the same as last time, and when the trail turned north, I continued east up through the forest again. Obviously, it's impossible to hike the same route exactly in the open forest, so I saw some very cool new things along the way. Several randomly dug holes and piles of dirt. Hopefully this was dug by qualified archaeologists. This looks like a very old piece of pottery. Here's an interesting grouping of rocks. A couple of them look like either they've had water flowing over them for many, many years, or maybe they were etched, so some type of liquid would flow over them. An amazing view looking southwest from here. And this is obviously where somebody has camped recently, likely within the past year. This is an unusual rock, very different than any of the other ones I've seen here. A lot of pores on the surface, but also heavy. This does look volcanic to me. Maybe I'm on the right track. Even this far to the north end of the village site, there are these organized rows of rocks, and rocks in circular patterns. I have no idea if these are original ruins or something more recent. I am very high up on the mountain now, though. This rock post coming up out of the ground is unusual for sure, in shape and also in texture. Finally, I arrive at some larger boulders, so I check them out thoroughly. Anytime there's a fallen tree like this, I see it as a free opportunity to look into the ground. These old roots pull up so much with them when the tree falls over. Obviously something's been scratching here, likely either a bear or a deer. What do you think? Antlers? Wait, I do see a few claw marks into the bark. Interesting mushrooms or other fungi stepping down this tree. I am very high up on the mountain at this point. And here's another huge boulder coming up out of the ground. Look at how these rocks are stacked at the base of this boulder. Were they put here for support? Or is there something hidden behind them? Who knows? I've heard trees were bent like this by natives to mark their trail, like dropping a pin on GPS in the old days. But surely this tree can't be more than 100 years old. The system does work, though. I've seen trees like this on my hikes, and they do tell me where I am. The underbrush is thick up here. Imagine this in the summer. Here's another huge boulder that looks like a cave from a distance. I would love to be able to dig all this out about 2 feet down and sift through it. Who knows what's in there? If I was living here 1,200 years ago, this is one of the places I'd be, hanging out and making weapons.
Okay, I'm at a flat clearing. Looks like there's a trail that comes in from right there. And when I look up the hill, there's a big, long rock cliff. It goes that way. So maybe I'm here. Maybe. And here's the flat clearing.
Seriously, look at how flat and rounded this area is compared to the steep angle I've been hiking so far.
And even up this high, these rocks that are poking out of the leaves looked purposely stacked.
As I hike further up, I cross what is either the old trading trail or an old logging trail. And as I follow it, I come to a smaller and more established trail, which is likely me rejoining the Arcaqua Trail. This is heading toward the cliffs, so I'll follow it up. The sights and natural beauty along this journey blow my mind. Look at the twisting of these vines. I checked my compass again, and it seems rock steady here too. And I've been hiking due east. This puts me here on my map. The Arcaqua Trail does cross over the left or north corner of the rock cliff. Also, notice the length of my journey compared to my first trip. The Arcaqua Trail meanders back left and around this cliff. I'm going to explore the entire upper face of the cliff. To the right, or heading south. These cliffs are such an amazing sight up close and walking on them. The drop down the mountain is steep from here. I've been hiking for about 2 hours now. It's slow going straight up the mountain over natural thick terrain. All the small vines here are poison ivy. This would be a torture chamber for most of us in the summer. The cliffs literally go on and on to the right. I explore every groove and gash, looking for anything that might be this mysterious fumarole. Obviously, I'm a little blown away when I see this silhouette up in the rock cliff above me. Looking down over the village ruins, I'm not a big believer in signs, but this is unreal. And I have to wonder, I find several more overhangs up here, but none strike me as being a volcanic vent. There are a lot of cracks in the rock cliff, though. And a lot of boulders that have fallen or slipped over the years. So I'll keep heading south along the cliff. From here, you get a perspective of how high up we are right now. Another rat hole. Look at how thick the underbrush is here, even in the winter. This cliff goes on, and the drop down heading back west is steep and looks infinite. But I know the bottom's down there somewhere. I came from it. As crazy as it is, and as high up as I am, I almost slip in a pile of bear poop, so I guess I better be careful. It seems to have fur and grain and berry seeds in it. Nasty. As you can see, the search is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. There are so many small holes up here. The views are amazing, though. On the way back down from the very top now, I'll probably slip and slide right through that bear shit. Look at the view down and off to the right. If I slip in that bear shit, I'm done. If I meet that bear right now, I'm probably done. Imagine the indigenous people living here 1,200 years ago. This rock cliff was a safety break for them. They were not likely to be attacked from the back. Again, this gives you an idea of how thick the underbrush is up here. This would be fully covered in the summer, and likely fully covered in rattlesnakes or copperheads with all these little holes in the rocks.
See what looks like another little hole. Go check it out real fast. It goes nowhere though. And right below me is something that actually looks like it has been dug out. There's a flat spot dug right out of the cliff. I'll go down and take a peek at that. And this actually turns out to be just an old tree that has tumbled over many years ago. And this rock cliff literally just keeps on going, going and going. There's a lot of shiny water coming off of this part of the cliff. Really lush up here with a lot of moss growing. And as I head back down the mountain, further south of where I came in, there's another big cliff that has a lot of water dripping off of it. Looks like somebody's piled up a few rocks down there too, so I think some people have been here recently. These muscadine vines are just amazing.
This is where mountain streams begin, a drop at a time, gathering force and heading downhill.
Very interesting pipe or bowl-shaped rock right here. And another one right behind it here. And this is a look from the other side.
I have no idea if these curved stones are hand-carved or natural. I'm right here now in my journey, which should be somewhere close to the Acropolis on formal maps of the village.
More piles of rocks here, seem organized.
I envision these rock piles being stacked formally with good old red clay mud in between them as mortar, and a wood and deerskin structure on top of that, 1,200 years ago.
And this pile of rocks actually looks like the forming of a long wall. Starts way up there, comes down, down, then curves over right here. Let's see if I can step down without busting here. There's another view of it coming down and then going across that way. And I'm standing at the edge of a large circular mound of rocks, elevated mound of rocks. And it looks like somebody's been digging in here. A lot of the surface soil is disturbed. Could have been turkeys, could have been deer, bear. And this is interesting. It's actually a Pepsi can, but it has a lot of tooth bite marks in it, animal tooth bite marks in it, so I haven't seen any trash or any graffiti or anything up here to this point, but I don't know if I'm ready to blame this on people yet either because of the bite marks on there.
I know from many hikes in the middle of nowhere, wild animals can haul food packaging pretty far.
Seeing a lot more digging and rooting here, so I'm thinking this actually may be either a bear or a wild boar or wild turkeys out here rooting around. And another wall going across here.
This actually looks like it could be an altar or something, like a rock stage covered in moss.
And this whole area is terraced out pretty good. And here's another rock wall. And then on this side of it, there's a mound of rocks. And just on the back side of this rock wall, there's another Pepsi can.
Obviously somebody has been walking around here who likes Pepsi. This can didn't have any bite marks in it, so I'd say both cans are just flat out littering. This tree, though, definitely had some bite marks in it, and claw marks. A bear snacking on bugs. Look how high up the bark is ripped off.
I can't decide what sort of mound I'm on right here. Several piles of rocks. Seem very organized piles. And then right along the side, etched into the side of this, is a what looks like a trail, a pathway, or a small road. This may be part of the old trading trail. I checked the compass again, and it does seem to list a tiny bit toward west and then back to north. From right here, I'm looking at several rows of walls, stepped walls stepping down the mountain. You can see 3 up above me up there. This one here. And then several down below me. Stepping down one here. One going across there. Across here. Out there. Straight down. Another wall here. Another wall below it. And 2 more below that. And right down there in the center of the frame, that's the creek. And right here in front of that is another wall running parallel to the creek. I'm following it right here. And this wall just keeps going.
Some area locals have claimed their great-great-grandparents built these walls as they cleared the land for cornfields. Can you imagine Peepaw choosing to grow corn way up here on this mountain when the valleys below are flat and fertile? Anyone who claims the white settlers grew corn up here has never hiked up here before. Peepaw and his mule too would have legs like Popeye's arms. These walls and mounds and circles were engineered for a different purpose.
And here's an interesting shaped rock. The groove cut in it. And another long rock structure. Some sort of center point here, and then a wall that continues out in that direction. and another wall back behind it here, and two more piles of rock up there behind it, and a flat plaza type area right up above that.
I personally envision these walls being much higher when they were built, and with Georgia red mud in between the rocks. These people were protected at the back by the tall cliffs, and protected at the front by these rock terraces and walls. Over 1,000 years ago. Think about that. What else was here and part of the construction that is long gone now? Wood beams, animal skin tents.
And this looks like a circular structure here. Rocks organized in a big round shape.
Now, also imagine hundreds and hundreds of years of leaves falling, harsh weather, the soil slowly sliding like melting ice cream. What was here then?
A lot of rocks organized here in this area. Is this possibly the serpent's head? Who knows?
And after day 2, no sign of a fumarole. An absolutely amazing day of hiking, but obviously I was going to have to go back again. So I thought about what terrain I had covered and what terrain I hadn't covered. So I decided there was something in the cliffs above I'd missed. I went high, to the top and across. What would I find if I go low and skim the bottom of the cliff across? So this trip, I chose to hike the Occoquan Trail back up to the cliffs because it's a much easier hike. Hard, but easier. And then I would cut across the natural terrain heading south. Today morphs into an amazing day, so stick with me. I'm feeling positive, and the weather is perfection for this journey. If you've ever hiked the Occoquan Trail, you know it's a burn, straight up the mountain. Very physical, but it's much smoother than hiking through the rough. So it should buy me some time today. The thought of Brasstown Bald Mountain being the remains of a volcano from millions of years ago is fascinating, and also mind-boggling. We tend to get caught up in the stress and drama of our little lives, but the reality is we have only been here for a tiny fraction of the history of our Earth. It's a blink. I've heard and read so much about the controversy of whether this site is a site built by Mayan immigrants. I think the controversy is overblown, though. There are two things humans have been doing since the beginning of time. One is traveling, and two is breeding. For some, the concept of a group of people migrating that distance, 1,200 to 1,500 years ago, simply boggles the mind. It also confuses what they know and believe about religion and about the American history we were taught. Also, the human ego is a very fragile and yet powerful thing. None of us want to be wrong.
what's interesting is there are a bunch of holes dug up in here like this with no fallen trees around. Like holes in the ground purposely dug. I'm not sure why, unless it was somebody looking for something years ago. And finally, I arrived back up at the left side of the rock cliff, except this time I got here by trail. An easier hike, but still very, very physical. And right up there is the left corner of the rock cliff. So this time, instead of going up to the top and around across the top, I'm going to go to the bottom and follow it over to the village. What makes this whole search difficult, though, is there are so many little caverns like this on the cliffside. And who knows over the years how many boulders have slipped and covered an opening.
Apparently this fumarole I'm searching for was active with steam coming out of it until the late 1800s. And this activity stopped when something shifted during the Great Earthquake of Charleston, which is the largest earthquake to ever hit the east coast of the United States. As I'm heading south, I see an odd sight. Literally in the middle of nowhere.
Interesting. An old chair. I see no skeletal remains, no beer cans. Maybe somebody just got tired.
Maybe they just sat down to enjoy this amazing view. Right now I'm standing on the edge of a tiered cliff. It drops off here below me, and then again below that, and slopes down into the valley heading down the mountain. A lot of large rocks scattered around. It looks interesting. I'm walking on the edge of the second cliff now, along a row of large boulders. There's the third cliff below me.
Okay, this looks like it's a cave. It goes up into the mountain, and it looks like there's been a fair amount of traffic here. Foot traffic of some sort. I don't know if it was a bear or what it was. But I'm going in with caution. Oh yeah. Wow. And I believe we've found it.
This probably explains the foot traffic along the cliff edge into here. It looks like something has been sleeping here. It might have left when it heard me around the corner talking to myself. This is a pretty large cavern.
Naturally, I'm looking on the walls for any etchings.
Look at the interesting shape of these rocks. I was beginning to wonder if I was looking at the very old remains of a statue. The foot and the ankle and lower leg, and this piece would sit straight on top of this piece. But these are likely just oddly shaped rocks.
This opens up and goes down into there. And back in there as well. With some digging, it looks like it continues to go back.
The flat rock to the left does look like a rock that smaller tools were chipped off. Notice the scallops chipped out of it.
And as you can see, this continues to go way back into the mountain, though so much of this has crumbled in.
This is interesting too. Look what happens when I push a small camera up into this hole back into the mountain. So what are we looking at here? This looks like a bone. This looks like a piece of hip or shoulder bone. A piece of spine. This looks like bone. This looks like a piece of a jaw. This looks like bone. And this behind it does too. There's no way to tell though from this footage. This is looking pretty far back into a side cavern that's too small to fit into. Also, this would be work for qualified archaeologists, not a hiking filmmaker. This is a protected archaeological zone, and for a reason. This is looking further back in the main chamber. An interesting piece laying here. More crumbles of rocks at the back. So I have to wonder how far back this might have gone 1,000 years ago.
There is some rock with some spiky growth on it. And more back in that crack back in there, heading into the darkness. And a lot of what looks to be green rock up in the cracks right in here, but it's actually either a moss or a fungus because it will wipe off. Kind of curious what the sulfur content in here might be.
Another thing that's interesting is there are no bats in here, not one. But it did look like a big mammal has been sleeping here near the entrance. Likely bobcats and raccoons living in these rocks too. And as I was looking around in here, I noticed this guy over my shoulder watching me.
So there's the cave I just came out of, and right next door there's another one, a neighbor. Likely part of the same system. This one has an interesting rock right at the front, and it looks a lot like lava rock. It looks like the lava rock you buy at the store. Looks very porous. All right, let's climb up in here and see what we can find. And this one obviously goes way back too. And some blue fungus or something growing on this rock right here. But what's interesting, like I said, this continues to go way back in there, but the gap is so small that there's no way I could climb back in there. And so far I don't hear anything, smell anything odd, or see any movement back in there. But it looks relatively well traveled up into there. And then there's another little path right there that goes back into the mountain. And this is looking back out toward the door. And again, I don't see any etchings on the rock anywhere. And this is basically as far up in here as I can slide. I am starting to smell something a little gamey up in here right now. I have no idea what, but I still don't hear anything. And from that second cave, there's yet a third smaller cave. And I'm continuing along the ledge. And another one. Wow, this one goes way back as well. And it looks like I could shimmy up into that one. Wow. Still very tight though. see if I can get up and around the corner. And like I said, this one just keeps going around the corner there. Wow. And that's looking on around the corner and as far as I can see, basically.
At this point, I'm squeezed so tightly up in here, I am screwed if there's something around the corner.
And the last little divot up in here. It's an interesting rock right here. And looking down, and even as we're on these cliffs, where these caves are, there's another drop-off cliff right here below me. So I'll go check it out. And down a little further below the caves we just explored, there's another small opening into the earth. It's more of a, like a stone chimney going back into the mountain.
After looking at the 4 caves above and looking at this, I'm going to say that this is probably actually the mystical fumarole I've been looking for. It looks like a vent or a chimney.
And this does seem to go back and down into the rock. And this is down below the caves, looking up at them. And even below that, there's another boulder and another small cliff.
This may be the most interesting rock formation I've seen on these 3 trips out here. The ultimate love rock. I do have to wonder if this was purposely built as part of the village or if it's just a random rock formation.
Down below, directly below the Fumarole and the caves I just visited, is another flat plaza area. With some boulders around it, and it looks obviously carved into the mountainside because the rest of the mountain has been very steep, straight down.
I've read so many interesting theories suggesting what these flat plazas were built for, even suggestions that they were landing pads for UFOs or alien spacecraft. My relatively logical mind immediately tells me that if these indigenous people of 1,200 years ago were interacting with aliens, they would have been fortified with knowledge, technology, and weaponry that the coming Europeans would have stood no chance against.
There is a lot of poison ivy growing out here, growing up from the ground. So if you're highly allergic, you may be in a mess, particularly in the summer. It's another really interesting rock here.
I know it may be odd to say this looks volcanic, but this huge rock just looks volcanic, like liquid magma rolled upon itself, or ancient mud rolled upon itself. After 3 very physically demanding and adventurous days, I hiked back west. Feeling satisfied, I found what I was searching for. And I have some answers to things I was curious about. But I have to admit, I'm even more fascinated now at what life was like for these indigenous people that built a city here on this mountainside in North Georgia that was once a volcano millions of years before. As I hike back to my car that was made in Japan on the other side of this earth and head to my warm home that has electricity, running water, bathroom, toothpaste, toilet paper, refrigerator, internet, washer and dryer, I'll pop a cold beer and I'll think about this day.
I am starting to smell something a little gamey up in here right now. I have no idea what, but I still don't hear anything.